I never thought a simple holiday could turn into such a nightmare. Oma and Obi were just like any other teenagers in our village. They were siblings, close in age and always together. Their parents, hardworking farmers, decided to take a short trip to visit relatives in a neighboring village. It was the holiday season, and they thought it would be good for the kids to have some time alone at home. Oma was 15 and Obi was 17. They were responsible enough to take care of themselves, or so everyone thought. The village was quiet and the days were long and hot. Without their parents around, Oma and Obi found themselves with a lot of free time. At first, everything seemed normal. They cooked, cleaned and even took care of the small garden behind their house. But as the days went by, something changed. They started spending more time in their room, whispering and giggling. No one thought much of it. After all, they were just kids enjoying their holiday. But then, the whispers turned into something more. Oma and Obi began to share a bed. It started innocently enough, with them just talking late into the night. But soon, it became something else. They were young and curious, and without their parents' guidance, they crossed a line that should never have been crossed. Months went by and Oma started to change. She became quieter, more withdrawn. Her once bright eyes now filled with worry. She stopped playing with the other kids in the village and spent most of her time indoors. People began to notice, but no one knew what was really going on. One day, I was visiting their home to drop off some vegetables my mother had sent. I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. I pushed it open and found Oma sitting on the floor, crying. Her belly was a bit swollen, and it was clear she was pregnant. I was shocked and didn't know what to say. Oma, what happened? I asked, my voice trembling. She looked up at me with tears-filled eyes and whispered, "It's Obi." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could this have happened? They were siblings, and this was something that was never supposed to happen. I sat down beside her, trying to comfort her, but I was at loss for words. The news spread quickly through the village. People were horrified and didn't know how to react. Oma and Obi's parents were called back from their trip, and when they arrived, they were devastated. They couldn't understand how their children could have done something so terrible. The village elders held a meeting to decide what to do. There was a lot of anger and confusion. Some people wanted to send Oma away, while others thought Obi should be punished. But in the end, they decided to keep the family together and try to support them through this difficult time. Oma gave birth to a baby girl a few months later. She was beautiful, but her arrival brought more pain than joy. The family struggled to come to terms with what had happened, and the village was never the same again. Oma and Obi's relationship was forever changed. They could no longer look at each other without feeling the weight of their actions. Their parents tried to forgive them, but the hurt ran deep. The once happy family was now broken, and the village was left to pick up the pieces. As the baby grew, the village's whispers turned into loud judgment. Oma and Obi were shunned by many, and their parents faced constant shame. The family tried to move on, but the stigma was too strong. The baby named Ada became a symbol of their mistake, and every time they looked at her, they were reminded of their pain. Oma, struggling with the burden of motherhood at such a young age, fell into a deep depression. She rarely left the house, and her once vibrant spirit was now a shadow of its former self. Obi, on the other hand, tried to escape the reality of their situation by spending more time away from home. He took up odd jobs in neighboring villages, hoping to find some solace in the distance. One fateful day, while Obi was away, a terrible storm hit the village. The rain poured down in torrents, and the wind howled like a wild beast. The river nearby swelled and overflowed, flooding the village. Houses were destroyed and people were forced to flee to higher ground. In the chaos, Oma and Ada were trapped inside their home. The water rose quickly, and Oma, in her weakened state, struggled to keep Ada safe. She held her baby tightly, praying for a miracle, but the water kept rising and soon they were both submerged. When the storm finally passed, the villagers returned to find devastation. Among the wreckage, they found Oma and Ada's lifeless body. The sight was too much to bear, and the village mourned the loss of two innocent lives. Obi returned to find his home destroyed and his family gone. The grief was overwhelming, and he blamed himself for not being there to protect them. He wandered the village, lost and broken, unable to find any peace. The tragedy left a permanent scar on the village. The once close-knit community was now fractured, and the memory of Oma and Ada haunted everyone. Obi, unable to cope with the guilt and sorrow, eventually left the village, never to return. Obi's departure left a void in the village. His parents, already heartbroken by the loss of Oma and Ada, now faced the pain of losing their son as well. They aged quickly, their once strong and vibrant spirits now dulled by grief. The farm, which had been their pride and joy, fell into disrepair. The crops withered, and the animals grew thin. The family that had once been the heart of the village was now a symbol of sorrow and loss. Obi, meanwhile, wandered from village to village, never staying in one place for long. He took on various jobs, but nothing could fill the emptiness inside him. He avoided forming close relationships, fearing that his past would catch up with him. The guilt and sorrow weighed heavily on him, and he often found himself thinking about his family and the life he had left behind. One day, while walking in a distant village, Obi heard news of his parents' passing. They had died within days of each other, their hearts too broken to go on. The news hit him hard, and he realized that he had lost everything that mattered to him. He decided to return to his home village, hoping to find some closure. When he arrived, he found the village much changed. New houses had been built, and many of the old faces were gone. But the memories were still there, and he felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. He visited the graves of his parents, Oma and Ada, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to cry. Obi spent the next few months trying to rebuild his family's farm. It was a way for him to honor their memory and find some peace. The villagers, seeing his effort, began to soften towards him. They offered their help, and slowly, the farm began to thrive again. But the pain of the past was never far away. Obi often found himself lost in thought, haunted by the memories of what had happened. He knew that he could never fully escape the tragedy that had shaped his life. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Obi sat by the river, watching the water flow by. He thought about Oma, Ada and his parents, and he felt a deep sense of sorrow. He knew that he could never undo the past, but he hoped that by rebuilding the farm, he could find some redemption. As the years went by, Obi continued to walk the land, and the farm became a symbol of resilience and hope. The village too began to heal. Please like and subscribe for more.